I think she's doing a fantastic job, Susie is. And anyway, she's a married woman. Kate Williams is with me again, the royal historian who's given us so much information over this week and the royal procession making its way towards the Golden Gates. But we thought, first of all, what we do is look back to the year of the coronation, 1953, and see what the royal procession looked like then.
Now you can see well the 6 grey horses, varying in ages from rising 6 up to as much as 10 years old. They've had a very heavy but glorious coronation here. Her Majesty the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh in the first carriage. Her Majesty wearing a biscuit-coloured coat with a black velvet collar and a small black hat. Together with them in the carriage, the Duke of Gloucester and the Duke of Beaufort.
And this year at Royal Ascot, there is a photographic exhibition down by the pre-parade ring commemorating 60 years of the Queen at Royal Ascot. And during that time, she has owned 20 winners, one of them coming, actually the first of them, in 1953 with Choirboy in the Royal Hunt Cup. And the 50s were a particularly profitable period for royal runners. And the favourite race, or the most successful race over the years, has been the Ribblesdale and the Hunt Cup, actually. She's won both of those 3 times. As Willie has been saying, a chance of a royal winner today in the Queen's Vase with Estimate. And here comes the royal procession. And Kate, a scene as those pictures from 1953 prove that has changed so little over the years.
So little. It could be all over the same, except that, you know, they're just looking just a tiny bit younger there. And that marvellous year, 1953, year of the coronation, the great year of triumph for Elizabeth. She was the most incredibly popular queen. And of course, the news on the same day as her coronation, the news came through that Edmund Hillary had conquered Everest. And it seemed to the people in 1953 we were unconquerable. So there was some great fancy dress at the time. There was quite a lot of Everest fancy dress, people dressed up as TV sets, so I like to imagine that quite a few of the hats at Royal Ascot would have been a couple of Everest hats as well.
And the Queen, as we can see there, wearing a heather wool crepe dress with matching coat and hat, all of those by Angela Kelly, and joined in the first carriage by His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, and also Mr Christopher Rhys-Jones and Mr Alistair Bruce, Christopher Rhys-Jones being the father of the Countess of Wessex.
Of course, and you know, it's very interesting because often the media comment on the presence of the Middletons, but they don't often comment on the fact that the parents of Sophie Rhys-Jones are often in the procession. They're clearly very good friends of the Queen, and it's marvellous to see them there. No rain, and the Queen doesn't need she had this marvellous umbrella yesterday, didn't she? This mint umbrella. Today she doesn't need a purple umbrella. Let's cross our fingers so she can get to the end without some rain.
In the second carriage, we find the Queen's first cousin, Prince Michael of Kent, along with Princess Michael of Kent, Sir Michael Rake, who is chairman of BT Group, and his wife Caroline, Lady Rake.
Hanging hard to their hats there.
And Prince Michael's father was Prince George, Duke of Kent.
Yes. So he is the Queen's cousin. So they have a very long relationship with the Queen. She is very fond of him and has a very long relationship. Princess Michael herself said he shared the same speech coach as her father, King George VI, as was shown so brilliantly in the King's speech.
In the third carriage, we have on the far side there in the pale blue, that's Lady Caroline Warren, sitting opposite her husband John Warren, and closest to us Mr. and Mrs. Harry Legg-Burke. And Harry, a former Welsh Guards officer, now works in the city, his wife Iona. And Harry, obviously Tiggy Legg-Burke was extremely influential as Prince William and Prince Harry grew up as their nanny.
Very devoted. They were really devoted to her, and of course she'll be someone that Prince William was thinking of yesterday in his 30th birthday, that great milestone. So Prince William next on his way to 31. So it's really so great to see. I mean, the first time the Queen came to Ascot was in 1945. She was a 19-year-old, and really, after being really shut away during the war at Windsor Castle, being really quiet, being really restrained, it was her chance to burst out onto the world, really just over a month after the declaration of the end of the war, VE Day on the 8th of May. It was an incredible moment for her, and really, the war was, at the end of the war, she was in the ATS, she was working as a mechanic, driving her own car. She was becoming a new woman.
In the fourth carriage, we find the Honourable Edward Tollemache, who was in the royal procession yesterday as well, and his wife, and also Mr. and Mrs. Johan Rupert. Gaynor is the name of Mrs. Rupert, and Johan Rupert is a South African business tycoon. He's chairman of the Swiss-based luxury goods company Richemont and the South Africa-based company Remgro, and also chief executive officer of Compagnie Financière Richemont. So continuing the international flavour of the royal procession.
And it's so great to see them in the open carriages. I mean, you know, with the terrible rain, I mean, we sometimes might think they might be justified in coming in cars. And really the only time, the Queen's been to Royal Ascot every year since 1945. And the only time they've had to come in cars was 2001 because the cars were being stolen for the state opening of Parliament. They used the carriages then, so they had to come in actual cars then. So I think it's really important for her to show herself to the people. For ever since Queen Victoria, monarchs have really wanted to make sure that they're seen because they know that people come here. They want to see the Queen, they want to see the Duke of Edinburgh, they want to see what she's wearing. It's all so much fun, and it's just so terribly important to her that she is that part of the procession, and we can see her, and there she is, completely shown to us. We can really see that hat and outfit looking resplendent.
And I've worked out what it is that is, I think, making the Duke of Edinburgh laugh, or made him laugh yesterday. On our camera, on our car camera, we put a top hat, and it's decorated differently every day, and today it's got, you know, different flowers on it. And so they can see it very clear. There it is. You see the...
That's our funny top hat. That's what's making him laugh.
Exactly.
We're not allowed to customise our top hats in the royal enclosure, are we? They have to be very plain. I'm glad we're making the Duke laugh. He's got such a great sense of humour. He's always telling them such funny jokes. Keeps everyone entertained. So the only people missing, of course, are the corgis. No corgis here for the Queen. We're not allowed to have our dogs here. She's such a incredibly fond of horses throughout history, and also of corgis as well. She, you know, her first corgi was bought for her when she was 18, and ever since then, every corgi's been bred from that same one, Susan.
And it's interesting, actually, how different monarchs have almost adopted different breeds of dogs.
Yes.
So Charles I, you know, would either have big, grand sort of wolfhounds, or indeed, well, the King Charles Cavalier Spaniels
that
and those
look like him, and every portrait of him looks like one of those dogs as well. And she's her mother was very fond of corgis, and they bought them when she was a very little girl, but she's been passionate about them. And they don't always have the best of temperaments, corgis. They can be a little bit snappy.
Don't say, honestly, Kate, if you say something like that, you will get the wrath of corgi owners, Pembrokeshire and Cardigan corgi owners everywhere will be onto you.
But they have a marvellous life.
They have character.
They have character. They know what they want. They
do.
Know what they want. They're decisive. They're absolutely decisive. And the Queen's corgis, they have these marvellous baskets that just up it off the ground.
Now, interestingly, we saw Joseph O'Brien walking the course earlier, and he and his father Aidan, that looks like them, standing out on the course and waving to the Queen as the royal procession passes, and a fantastic spot actually to watch the royal procession in relative peace and quiet, get a different view of it, and see the Windsor Greys leading that first carriage. It's very well balanced, the carriages.
Yes.
You know, they have very good suspension.
They do. When the Queen was just a little girl, one of her favourite games with the governess was pretending either the governess would be a horse or the Queen would be a horse. And if the governess was the horse, the Queen would ride her around, put a saddle on her, and make her stop at little places saying they're pretending to be a grocer's horse, and drop off some bread, and drop off some sugar, and drop off some flour. And they could do it vice versa. She always loved pretending to be a horse, to ride a horse. So she was just absolutely a horse-mad little girl. And some little girls grow out of being horse-mad, and some never do. And the Queen is just as fond of horses as she's ever been. And
the Queen still rides regularly through Windsor Great Park. Had to stop riding for a while. Having had a...
Yes, and she used to ride at Trooping the Colour. I mean, she was an incredibly important part of that procession. No longer, of course, but she still is a very skillful rider, and it gives her huge amounts of pleasure, and it's, of course, marvellous exercise, as you know so well, Kyle.
And as we pointed out yesterday, the royal procession takes a different path every day to save the ground, so it's actually on its closest to the grandstand, almost as it can be, or maybe there's one more strip it could go across tomorrow. And the rain just starting to spit, but the carriage is still open so that the huge crowd here can get a clear view of the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh. And indeed of Prince Michael of Kent and Princess Michael of Kent in the
And I think it's
second
wonderful
carriage.
to really remember how it was like for our ancestors to travel in coaches like this. I mean, of course, we're so used to cars. The other day when I was coming up to Ascot, I was behind a carriage, and you actually got it's actually rather slow.
applause rings out at the end of the national anthem. They're played by the band of the Coldstream Guards. And Ascot, obviously a very short journey for the Queen from Windsor Castle. But in her 60 years as monarch, the Queen has undertaken 261 official overseas visits, 96 state visits to 116 different countries.
It's non-stop. It's non-stop being Queen. She's our most travelled monarch. She has travelled all over the world. She really sees herself as the Queen of the Commonwealth, and she sees it as very important that she visits continually. She did quite a lot when she was younger. And what's the big change, of course, when she was a child, is that when her parents went away on their big Commonwealth tours, they didn't take her. She was at home. When she was a very little baby, not long after, she was very, not even one, she was there at home. But it's rather different now. Monarchs, when they go travelling, they tend to take their children with them.
And on those foreign
And I think that's
visits,
really a role that's being taken on now by the younger royals. Increasingly, Kate and William, they're doing the travelling. The Duke and Duchess of Cornwall, they're the ones that are doing the travelling. At Cambridge and Prince Charles. I think it's because it's very important for the younger royals to take on that mantle, because it is rather exhausting for the Queen to keep up this huge pace.
And on those foreign visits, the Queen has received some interesting gifts. 2 tortoises given to her in the Seychelles in 1972. A 7-year-old bull elephant called Jumbo was given to the Queen by the President of Cameroon in 1972 to mark the Queen's silver wedding anniversary, and 2 black beavers after a royal visit to Canada.
I'd like an elephant. How sweet. My favourite gift ever was given to her on her actual wedding. It was 2 pieces of burnt toast, which was sent to her because 2 ladies were hearing the news, and they heard the news of the engagement between Prince Philip and Princess Elizabeth. They were so excited that they burnt their toast, and they thought they'd better send it in to prove that they were excited.
And later on we will see the Queen's colours in action once again. Those colours: purple body with gold braid, scarlet sleeves, and black velvet cap with a gold fringe. Must never call it a gold tassel, it's gold fringe. And those were colours adopted and inherited from those used by King Edward VII.
Yes, he was a great fan of racing. Queen Victoria had some good successes, but really it was Edward VII who really threw his heart and soul into racing. He loved it. He loved the horses, he loved the social occasion, which Queen Victoria didn't because she was in mourning for so much of her life. He just absolutely loved the celebration, the ladies in their hats, the whole look, and had some incredibly successful horses, including Diamond Jubilee, which was born in the year of the Diamond Jubilee, and ran some pretty good races.
Won the Derby in 1900.
Exactly. And George...
And going right back to Charles II, I know he was, most of his racing would have been done at Newmarket.
Yes.
But I suppose that would be one of the earlier instances of a monarch being really keen on the game.
Really, I mean, Queen Anne, of course, was the first one because she instigated
the first
Royal
one
Ascot.
here.
The first one here. And the first one to think, I think we should have our own special racehorse. And the royal family traditionally have been great riders. Of course, riding was so important for a king or queen in the old days because that was the way you led into battle. You had to be good at horsemanship. And a very interesting question yesterday came in saying, was Elizabeth I a good rider? She was marvellous. She was a very skillful rider, and that was crucial for a king and crucial for a queen as well.
Presumably Elizabeth I would have ridden side saddle?
Yes, she would have done. She would have done, not as we would know it. And she was very skilled, very fast, and very successful. And so what was once a very important job for a king or queen is now something that's a bit more ceremonial. But I love the fact that our royal family is still so keen on horses. The Queen herself, her first horse was given to her. It was a Shetland pony given to her by her grandfather, George V, and she called it Peggy. Queen Victoria's first horse was called Dicky the Donkey and was pretty fast, apparently. Used to go round and round Kensington Gardens.
Dicky the Donkey.
Dicky the Donkey. Speedy Dicky.
So the Queen and the Royal Party and the Duke of Edinburgh there will make their way up to the Royal Box. And actually this year, for the first time, they have built a box on the paddock side of the grandstand. And I saw the Duke of Edinburgh looking down on the runners in the paddock from that box. It's got a rather smart front on it.
Let's hope they're going to watch a winner today. I really hope so. My fingers crossed for Estimate and my money as well.
There's the new area. And the Royal
fab.
Box is on the other side of the grandstand, obviously looking over the racecourse.
Yep.
But as everything adapts when you realise, oh, we could do with this. You know, they can walk straight across a private bridge and then come out on this side, on the paddock side, and
Yes.
get a really good view of the
It's
horses.
a really good view, and yes, hopefully she'll be watching her win today.
Well,
But she was saying 50s was really her time, so maybe she'll get it back in the next decade to come.
Kate, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic stuff. And stay and enjoy the racing, won't you?
I will.
Because
Can't
I think
wait.
if there is a royal victory, I really think you should be here to
Well, I've
witness
got some
it.
money on it. I've got to get my kitchen done.
Yep, that's one thing to do with it.